Good morning, gang. Happy Saturday morning. All right, fun week, huh? Jeez. Yeah, yesterday, even more bloodbath on Wall Street, another 2,000 plus point drop in the Dow. Yeah, okay, what the hell's going on? Not that we're going to talk about tariffs, but we're going to talk about what's going on up here with people. You know, the rest of the world is apparently totally pissed off at the United States right now, which I find absolutely hilarious that everybody's screaming tariffs are bad, tariffs are bad, tariffs are bad. Yet for decades, they've been charging us tariffs. So they're only bad when you have to pay them, I guess. But that and all kind of gives you the idea of why. I don't think anybody disagree with me when I say Americans are a little different than the people in the rest of the world. Okay. I mean, we could talk about our love of guns. The rest of the world hates guns, most of the people. Okay. Americans love guns, freedom of speech. Well, we can tell the rest of the world hates freedom of speech too, right? Just from what's going on right now. But here's the difference between us and the rest of the world. The United States was founded by a bunch of individualists, rugged individualists, that didn't want to belong to the collective, that wanted to go set their own course in life. They weren't happy with the status quo. And over the course of our history, albeit short, 250 years is not exactly a long history, that mindset has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. Most people still want individual rights. That's very different from the rest of the world. If you look at countries around the rest of the world, collectivism is much more the mantra in those countries. The funny part is, and I'm guilty of this sometimes too, of kind of lumping all of Europe into one big collective basket. Like all Europeans are the same. I guarantee that's not true. The English and the French hate each other. The Russians and the Poles hate each other. Okay. Living in Italy, being Italian, is very different than being German, or pick any other country. They are all protective of their culture, right? You have a German culture. You have a French culture. Somebody please tell me what American culture is. We don't have one because we are a mishmash of a whole bunch of different groups. You have black culture, you have Hispanic culture, you have Asian culture, you have, if there even is such a thing, white culture, okay? In the United States, we're a collective. So therefore, we are more individualistic than these other countries. And not just Europe, let's take a look at Asia. Japan and China hate each other, okay? No love lost whatsoever. Want to insult the Japanese? Call them Chinese, okay? Japan is very protective of their culture. Leaving China out for square mileage. Think about it, though. Europe, mainland Europe, not including Russia, okay, is about the same size as the United States. The entire continent is about the same size as one country. Most countries in Europe are the size of one state. We have different cultures within this. We have the subcultures by ethnicity in the states with their culture. You can't tell me Texans are the same as New Yorkers. Just not going to have. Californians aren't the same as Floridians. Just not the same. Okay. But that's because it's no different than Italy being the same as Norway. They're on opposite ends of the continent, just like California and Florida are on opposite ends of the country. They're different challenges, different cultures, different ways of doing things. So we've struck out as individualistic, where the rest of the world is communal, tribal. Okay. The countries, at least, are. And they are very protective, or at least used to be, of their culture. Now, of course, with the invasion of all the Muslim hordes, they're losing their culture quickly, and a lot of people are getting pissed off about it. Gee, I don't want to be the first one to say it, but told ya. Okay. This is why everybody is so mad at the U.S. for these tariffs. They don't understand our thinking, your thinking, taking care of yourself. This is why Europe or Asia or anything are so supportive of these globalist ideals. They were raised on collectivism. Hey, if we can make Europe all one group, we'll be better off. Think of the EU, for example. Think of the advent of the euro. We no longer have Deutschmarks and French francs and Italian lira, et cetera, because they decided to become all one big collective and use one currency. Now, we all use one currency because we're one country. It would be chaotic if we had California money and North Dakota money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we've always been one country. They are now separate countries with the same money. I mean, even if you take Panama, for example, Panama's currency is pegged to the US dollar. It ain't the US dollar, but it's whatever the dollar does, the Panamanian dollar does. Okay. But it's still not the same currency. This is why we will succeed. Because as individuals, working toward your individual freedoms, you can easily become part of a collective. All right, think of, go back to World War II, and everybody rallied round the American flag. Go back to the days after 9/11, and everybody was American. Okay, didn't matter. We all collectively got together. But we went back to our individuality. It's easy to go from individuality to collectivism, or to being part of a collective, to being tribal. From being tribal to going to individual is practically impossible, because you've become so reliant on everybody else to do stuff that you can't do it for yourself. Now, in this community, our objective is to do as much as we can for ourselves and be a little tribal to get the help from others. But I very seriously doubt any of you are preparing based on what your neighbor's doing. Right? Okay. Oh, the neighbor's growing a garden. I don't need to. Oh, the neighbor has guns. I don't need to own them. Oh, the neighbor has electricity. I don't need to do it. I doubt anybody is doing that. But that is the rest of the world's idea of being ready for any sort of situation. Somebody else will do it. And they are trying to stuff that down our throats. This globalism, don't worry about it, we've got it taken care of. Until they don't. This is, in my opinion, one of the major reasons why the United States is the superpower it is. Economic, primarily. okay? Because we glorify people that go out on their own and do something. You look at the major innovations in the world in the last 250 years. You're going to be hard-pressed to find a whole lot of them that weren't come up with in the United States. Because we have the mentality, if you will, to go out and try something new, where the rest of the world will just keep going the way it is. That's kind of what's going on, what happened this week. Trump went out and did something new. We decided against we'll just go with the status quo of getting raped by the rest of the world financially, and we're gonna change it up. Oh my God, you can't do that. You're gonna upset the apple cart. The rest of the world is upset. They don't like uncertainty. They don't like the fact that somebody's doing things that ain't the way it's always been done. You know, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. Welcome to Washington, D.C. for the past 50 years. Okay. As you continue your prepping, as you continue your walk through life, celebrate the fact that you are and have the ability to make your own decisions, to be an individual, to take the other path, that you're not a sheep or a lemming walking to the cliff just because everybody else is. Europeans, Asians, Hispanics, they all have their way of life, and that's fine. That's the way they want to live. But when they don't understand us, that's why. I like marching to my own drum. That's it. Doing it the way I want to do it, not doing it the way somebody else tells me. We're rebels. We always have been. I mean, Gen X, just squared rebel, okay? We just decided to be a little more rebellious than normal. Keep doing what you're doing on an individual level, because the rest of the world is finding out really quick that collectivism doesn't work. Collectivism is the prelude to socialism, which is, of course, the prelude to communism. I find it really funny that Western Europe is embracing socialism and Eastern Europe is more or less embracing democracy. I mean, you could make a case at this point that Russia is more free than Great Britain or France or Germany. Okay? Kind of weird when you think back of the Soviet Union versus Western Europe and how they're doing this. It's going to be really interesting as things go forward. I'm still waiting for the days when maybe it's under Trump, maybe it's under future presidents in both Russia and US, but I'm still waiting for the day when the United States is allied with Russia against Western Europe. That might happen in my lifetime. Why? Because the people, the individuals, the you and me's, not the politicians, we have a lot more in common with the Russian people than we do with the Germans, the French, the English, whatever. Weird to say, right? We have a lot more in common with the Poles or the Hungarians, former Eastern Bloc countries. people that embrace their individualism because they lived under collectivism, socialism, communism. Funny how that works. You know, it's one of those things that if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. The Germans haven't learned squat from history. Come on, you've lost 2 world wars, okay? And you're ready to go into a third one. I don't know. If I got betting odds on Polymarket, I'm betting you go 0 for 3, okay? But it's going to be very interesting. Just keep embracing your individualism. Once we lose that, that's when we lose the country. Be a Texan. Be a New Yorker. Be a Californian. Okay? Be a Floridian. Embrace that. Embrace being an American. But the very first thing you need to embrace is being a Smith or a Jones or a Roberts or whatever, because that is number 1. God, family, country. In that order. Notice what's before country. That's the difference between us and the rest of the world. Pinball out.